New Year, everybody.
Yeah.
So, first one of 2025.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah, dude.
I mean, I guess it was just things just got caught up,
Mm-hmm.
but
Mm-hmm.
we're back.
Now we're
So,
back in hoodies and jackets.
yeah, episode 9, baby.
That's right. That's right. What have you been up to?
Not much, man. Just staying, positive. What about you? Did you have a good New Year?
New Year's was good. Saw family, ate well.
Mm-hmm.
Some good UFC events actually to kind of finish out the year.
Really?
Yeah.
I haven't been following though. Actually.
I've been off and on with it.
Yeah.
Because you know how it was back in the 10 years ago,
Right.
15 years ago. It was more of a we're better than boxing kind of promotion.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, remember that did you ever see that Never Back Down movie?
Yeah. I have. I thought one was actually okay. It was decent.
One was okay, and then in 2 there was a scene where that guy he was a boxer and he got like a eye injury,
Mm-hmm.
and the doctor was talking about how he might have to quit his career.
I
And
don't remember part 2. Is that the one with
that was one with Michael Jai White.
Oh, right,
Yeah.
right. Okay.
Yeah, he was good.
Yeah.
The rest of it was kind of
Right.
iffy.
Yeah.
It had Todd Duffy in it. He's a heavyweight contender back in the day.
Right.
But I remember this guy was the boxer, one of the main characters, was walking out of the hospital. He's walking down the hallway, and he passes by one of the receptionist desks, and she's watching some MMA clips, and she's talking on the phone with her friend, and she's saying, MMA is what boxing wishes it could be. I
Wow.
was like, yeah, I think I know who wrote the script.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Damn. So besides, who's been fighting these days though? I haven't really been following.
There's been some interesting matches. I'm not a close follower
Yeah.
of UFC, but when there's some promising athletes, I kind of tend to look, or people who have interesting ability, because there's been more. The game seems like it's changing a little bit more again.
Right.
There's a lot of guys.
It's always
from,
gonna be like that.
Yeah. There's a lot of guys bringing their judo, their sambo, their freestyle, their sanda now, with a lot of the fighters from China, Russia, Central Asia.
Yeah.
So guys like Shavkat Rakhmonov from Kazakhstan
Yeah.
looks nothing like Borat. Get rid of those jokes. And Ian Gary, they had an interesting fight. And they had this guy named Kai Asakura from Japan. He's a Ryzen champion, and he challenged for a world title in his first UFC fight.
Really? First?
Yeah.
How young is he?
He's in his early 30s, I want to say.
Okay.
Yeah. He did okay. He actually made it to the second round. It was pretty back and forth, but the guy who beat him he's supposed to be a top-level guy in his weight class, in the history of his weight class.
Wow.
So Alexander Pantoja, I want to say, Brazilian guy.
Is he what's his character like? Is he the quiet type?
The Japanese fighter?
Yeah. Oh,
No, he's loud and boisterous and really goofy.
Oh, damn.
Yeah, he's very out there. He's very cocky, very cocky in a fun way.
Right.
And his fighting's kind of shows that. He's always out there going bring it, come on. He's dropping his hands.
Right.
And he's throwing flying knees.
Oh, what's his background? Martial arts background, that is.
I don't remember. I mean, MMA and Ryzen, but I don't know how he got started. I don't know if he did kickboxing. It looks like he has a kickboxing background.
Yeah, I mean, the majority of them always has some kind of karate, judo, or Muay Thai.
Yeah. Well, did you watch K1 back in the day?
I did watch K1 back in the day.
What were your thoughts on that?
I loved it. My favorite guy is Krogoff. The
Krogoff?
Yeah, the cop.
Krogoff, yeah. Oh man,
yeah.
That left kick from hell, man.
Yeah. Of course, Bukal.
Oh yeah. He was the guy who made me notice K1.
Yeah. But didn't K1 have some kind of rule you can't throw elbows and knees or something like that?
I think Boakau did mention that. He said,
Yeah.
I can't use my favorite weapons.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was. I like Boakau. I liked Masato. the
Oh yeah,
Japanese
Masao.
fighter.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and it's interesting to see the Japanese kickboxers because I do wonder what the connection is with their traditional martial arts with MMA. I know there is one, right? Because a lot of those guys come from like a judo background, or at least have some judo. Some of them have I'm sure there's karate
Right.
schools available to train them
Right.
if they want to practice.
Right.
You know.
Well, I heard like Dutch style kickboxing, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So the basically the roots from Dutch style kickboxing is Japanese karate
Mm.
with boxing, and then a little bit of like because they wanted to defeat the Thais, so they had to
Right,
find
right.
like a way to defeat the Thais, and so that's how they developed that. But then I think some of the creators like went to Japan to learn all that stuff too, and then combine it into their own style. I always wanted to learn Dutch. I just don't know where to go for that.
Aren't they known more for pushing the pace and focusing more on boxing heavy approaches?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
combinations.
Mm,
They love to do a lot of combinations.
mm.
You know, um, like I remember this one guy explained to me what the difference is, and he said that Dutch kickboxers, like Muay Thai guys, when they about to throw a round kick,
Yeah.
they kind of like charge their hips,
Mm-hmm.
they torque their hips before they throw the kick.
Yeah.
But then with Dutch kickboxers, they just throw the kick.
Mm.
So because they believe that Muay Thai fighters, they telegraph their kicks.
Right.
So they found a
Interesting.
way to hide their kicks better, but then still stay strong.
Right.
You know?
That's clever though.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like a deeper dive into how to use the human body,
Yeah.
right? Or at least looking for ways, right?
Right.
But that's cool. That's how the art can evolve, right? Or how the sport can evolve. You got these guys who are at the top of the hill. Everyone else is trying to figure out, okay, how do I knock them off? We got to
Right.
come up with something to neutralize what they have, right?
Right. What do you think of the Chinese fighters in the UFC?
The ones I've seen, I was actually talking to a friend about that. They seem like they're very good with their foundation.
Mm-hmm.
The ones I've seen in UFC, like Zhang Weili, Li Jingliang, Song Yadong,
You think they have
They-
a strong, since they're Chinese, they probably follow their own traditional roots, combat roots, like Kung Fu. You think they have a strong Kung Fu background?
that doesn't seem to be the norm. They seem to come more from a Sanda background.
Oh, okay.
Sanda slash Shuaijiao background.
Uh-huh.
I mean, Shuaijiao's a traditional art, but it's practiced like a sport.
Right.
It's like a combat sport.
Right.
So I guess the answer to that is kind of a yes and no.
Right.
But they seem to, I guess every culture or every nation kind of has their mark in terms of how they fight, right? Like
Right.
like the Dagestani guys, they tend to be more grappling heavy.
Mm-hmm.
The Brazilians, I guess they can be kind of a mix. right?
Yeah.
But definitely usually have a pretty deep BJJ background. Americans, with American wrestling,
Yeah.
but Chinese, it seems like their mark is the Sanda,
Right.
right? It's the Sanda. That's kind of like the foundation that gets them in. That's like the segue to get them into UFC.
Right.
And for what I've seen now, their Sanda seems like it gives them really good punching, really good kicking. They could do side kicks better than most.
Yeah.
And they could do some upper body throws, like from the clinch.
Right.
Like I've seen Zhang Weili do some pretty good takedowns. And for the most part, they seem to be pretty powerful, pretty fast.
Right. I mean, the first person that displayed Sanda for me for the UFC was Kong Lee, and that's
The
when,
OG.
That's
The
how I
OG.
discovered that like the Chinese had their own version of kickboxing.
I think everybody who every Asian dude who did martial arts from a certain era, like the 90s and 2000s, I think we all knew who Kung Lei is.
Yeah. Yeah.
He was like the only guy out there
Right.
that was famous.
Right.
But yeah, I remember watching his flying scissors takedown. Unfortunately, I never got to try it because we were doing taekwondo,
Right,
and that
right.
would have been very frowned upon. But
It's very impressive, man.
yeah,
You
very
know?
like just how clean his stuff was.
Yeah.
Like he was doing movie stuff in the ring
Yeah.
and then in the cage.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
I think he's like retired now. He's just like teaching.
he's teaching. His son is fighting.
Yeah.
Yeah, his son's starting to make his way. Yeah, I mean, Colin Lay's got to be like in his early 50s now, and his
Right.
son, I guess he's in his 20s. He looks like he's. I mean, he
Right.
looks like a kid. So, but it's kind of hard to tell. He could be 19 or 30. You know.
Right. Did I know that a lot of people that does sanda, they probably did other styles that incorporated that too, like some kind of traditional martial arts.
Mm, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm willing to bet no. I'm willing to bet no. The reason I say that is because the schooling system probably will require them to really just do sanda. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how much, and they probably start fairly young. So I don't know how much room there is for traditional
Where's
martial
the
arts.
roots of sanda come from?
Uh, that's I would say it looks like a combination of boxing punches with taekwondo or karate kicks and strike jiao throws. I
Okay.
have also heard correct me if I'm wrong. Those of us, some of the listeners out there who have a specialty in sanda, right? Looking at you, Matt. Um, but there's also some sambo influence.
Really?
Yeah. Some sambo with a throwing, and there is some
They do a lot of leg counter like
leg catching.
sweeps and yeah, like
Yeah,
leg
yeah.
catching.
So I know there is some classical Chinese martial arts influence in those areas too,
Mhm.
besides just Shaijiao. I'm just not sure where they are. I think
Mhm.
because I think Sanda came about in the 1960s.
Right.
Yeah, 1960s. It is only a few decades old. And I remember reading in this martial science. They call it the Martial Science Journal. It's written by this guy from Singapore. I don't know where he is now, but he was talking about how there were a lot of matches between the Chinese and the Thais, and the Thais also had a big influence in how Sandas developed in the past couple of decades.
Right.
A lot of those MMA fighters go to Thailand to train now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I know, I think John Wei Lee has done it. I know some of the Sanda guys have done it too.
Yeah. She has a Muay Thai coach
Mm,
that stays in China and coaches her too.
mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm sure the Thais also have their fingerprints in how Sanda's developing nowadays,
Mhm.
because they don't look the same as they did. I remember like 15 years ago.
Yeah.
I think the technical level has gotten much better,
Right.
but it seems like, at least from me watching, um, it seems like they're having their growing pains as far as just adapting to the UFC game.
Right.
Defense wrestling, the rule set. But they definitely have the physical ability.
Yeah.
Like
I agree.
lot of those guys have and gals have knockout power,
Right.
and they're fast. They're conditioned. They have good fundamentals.
Mhm.
So we'll see. I'm curious.
Right.
It's like between them and like the Dagestanis. Maybe some of the fighters from different parts of Africa, Europe as well.
Right.
Like France seems like they're going to be producing more MMA fighters too.
Yeah.
So
You
it's
noticed
interesting to see how
like
the game might evolve. Yeah, go
right.
ahead.
You notice like so many countries do grappling. Like they have their own version of grappling, and then
Oh yeah.
they also have their own version of kickboxing. Like like the French have savate.
Hmm.
You know, even America has American kickboxing.
We had American kickboxing back in the day. Here we used to have this thing called rough and tumble.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you mentioned that
That
before.
was
Yeah.
the stuff I've read is not kickboxing. Is much more brutal.
Mhm.
Like gouging eyeballs and grabbing testicles and twisting it and breaking fingers.
That's crazy, man.
But there's definitely the influence from the Queensberry rules, right? Like you see the guys like standing like
Yeah.
this, like the old John L. Sullivan
Right.
pictures.
Right.
So I'm sure there's some Irish influence there.
Right. Right. That's interesting, man. So let me ask you this, man. Um, I mean, you are a kung fu guy too, right?
Mm-hmm.
So how do you feel about kung fu nowadays? Do you see that it's growing, or do you see that it's kind of like dying down.
It depends on where. I mean, I'd say. I mean, I guess just speaking here, right? Since we grew
Right.
up here,
Let's
I
say
haven't tracked like how it used to be compared to now.
right.
Because like you would have a better idea of that, like what kung fu was like back in the '90s, right?
Right. I mean, I ain't that old, but yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, but you were aware, you were in
Yeah.
that scene. I
Yeah.
wasn't in that scene in the
Yeah.
'90s. I was like 8 years old back then.
Right.
So, but as far as like classical kung fu, it seems like it's mainly strong in like pockets,
Right.
like different parts of New York, different parts of DC, Chicago. Your boy Keith Min, right?
Right.
When he was teaching,
Right.
Bay Area, Seattle, maybe certain seems like the largest cities where there's a where there's a big Asian population or
Well,
Chinese
strong
population.
Chinese population. Yeah,
Yeah,
they
yeah,
always have some.
and some Vietnamese too. A lot of
Yeah.
Vietnamese seem like
Yeah.
they also take kung fu very seriously.
Right. Right.
So some cities in Florida. Florida seems like it has an overall pretty strong martial arts scene.
I didn't know that about Florida
Yeah.
because they seem like they. I mean, this sounds a little biased, but to me, Florida just seems like they're all about guns, and they don't. It doesn't seem like they
Yeah,
they're like a kung fu culture. I mean, you see MMA,
yeah.
grappling, of course, but like
Well, I noticed too. Like, there's a lot of since I guess I get to see it too, since I'm in both camps.
Uh-huh.
The MMA, I mean the Chinese martial arts and the FMA, the Filipino martial arts world, right? There's a lot of connection between those. Like, there's a lot of interaction between people who practice either one or the other. There's a lot of
Right.
people who do both, or at least have done
Right.
both.
no, that's I'm happy to hear that. Like
Yeah,
it's good to see people like doing crossing over or like
Yeah.
mix or like learning different like
yeah,
systems.
because like when we talk about kung fu, right, we usually think about like just of Chinese origin, right, or
Right.
Chinese culture origin. But there's a lot of hybrids too that are still considered like traditional martial arts. So like speaking of Florida, right, there's some really good Kun Tao Salat people down there.
Kun Tao Salat.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay,
So
yeah.
Kun Tao is a Hokkien term.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And Silat is from I think Malaysia and
Right.
Indonesia.
I mean, from my understanding, from what I've told was, I thought Kun Tao and Silat was the same thing, but because the reason why I say that is Kun Tao is what the Chinese call that system, and Silat is
Yeah.
what the Muslim uh, groups would call that art.
Maybe.
So
yeah.
they have a different name. So it's kind of like what people said, like it's basically just adding the same name.
Could be. Could be. I know Kun Tao in Chinese it just means way the fist
Yeah.
or Hokkien.
Yeah.
If Silat means that in the languages of Malaysia or Indonesia, I
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah.
But it's a lot of there's been a lot of mixes throughout history. I think we talked about this before too, but like Kun Tao Salat, I know they take martial arts from like northern China all the way to
Right.
southern China.
It looks brutal, man. Like their conditioning.
It's not fun.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It kind of
a lot of body tempering.
yeah. The body tempering reminds me of like Okinawan karate.
Mm.
Because they do the same thing.
You could probably say similar things about a lot of southern kung fu systems
Yeah.
too, like Hongan,
The white
Chole
crane.
foot.
Yeah. Right.
White
Like,
Crane definitely.
White Crane does some
Yeah,
stuff
yeah,
like
yeah.
that as well. I think certain Korean martial arts does the same thing as well too.
I'm sure. I guess
Yeah.
it's pretty universal, right? Like you wanna be able to develop your limbs to where if you hit something, you're gonna be able to break it without hurting
Right.
yourself. It shows that I guess they all value being able to hit stuff and break it, right?
Mhm,
So like,
mhm.
I guess I'm sure that's how breaking or board breaking
Right.
or bat breaking if you're a Muay Thai guy. Or some of those karate guys. I'm sure that's how it kind of started too, right?
Yeah, I remember we were talking about this when we were training the other day. We were talking about how certain martial arts value certain stuff to add with their training, right?
Mhm.
So we were talking about like how like in Asia, certain martial arts discipline have to have breaking and some kind of conditioning where they like break bricks and wood and stuff as a
Yeah, yeah,
part of their training.
yeah,
But then when it comes to Westerners, like with their martial arts, they think that's all like hogwash in a way. Like they don't add
yeah,
that in
yeah,
their curriculum.
yeah. I mean, there have been guys who were able to break those bricks and then get into a ring situation they don't do well, right?
Right.
Um, but would I say that, like for me, would I say that the breaking is useless? I definitely wouldn't. It's one of those
Yeah. I
things
don't.
where,
I feel that I think the same way.
yeah. I mean, maybe everyone just saw that scene in Enter the Dragon where he was like, balls don't hit back. And they
Right.
just kind of took
Right.
that and kept going with it, right?
I don't know what it's about that. I think it's because of over here. You hear it all the time. If you don't spar,
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
then how do you know if your art works, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I think in Asia we kind of take it a different approach. Like I think we think more of you want to end the fight
Yeah, yeah,
fast.
yeah.
So breaking like certain hard objects will basically means that okay, you end the fight quick. I mean, I think that's the biggest goal, right?
Maybe, yeah.
So I
And
think that's why like different cultures see different ways of like combat.
yeah, and I think also like, a UFC match, a boxing match, a kickboxing match, that's it's a very specific way to train combat,
Right.
right? And that's not to say that someone who trains those things can't fight effectively. I think it's
Right.
clear that they can, right?
Right.
But it's that the empty hand dueling between two contestants is a different scenario than probably what a lot of these arts evolved to do.
Right.
So which is like a lot of these arts evolved to be a part of the military, or they evolved to be villagers protecting their homes, right?
Mm-hmm.
And usually with that, one, there's usually weapons involved, and two, it's oftentimes a group against a group,
Right.
right? So I think if you're prepping for that, it's a very different scenario,
Right.
right? It's like if you're in a melee, I'm sure like you don't want to focus on one person too much.
Right.
Yeah, that's my guess, right? You wanna be able to, hopefully, if you tag them, that's all you had to do.
Right. I wonder why like a lot of like the modern martial arts they don't do that anymore.
I mean, I guess it depends on who you ask. I'm sure some of the traditionalists would say it's because it's too painful to practice.
Right.
I don't know if I agree with that. I mean, kickboxing's plenty painful.
Right.
MMA is plenty painful. So is boxing. So different kind of pain.
Right.
Different kind of pain. Definitely doing body tempering.
Probably to some they think it's too extreme. Right.
Or maybe just a lot of time dedicated to something that may not benefit you.
Right.
Right. Or not, at least not as much, right?
Uh-huh.
It's like, yeah, I can break bricks, but I spent 2 years learning that. This other guy spar for 6 months and he can beat my ass, right?
Right. Yeah.
I wonder
yeah.
if that's kind of what they're thinking too.
Yeah. Huh.
Because for the most part, like if you go into a prearranged one-on-one duel situation, yeah, the guy who's been boxing 4 times a week for 6 months probably would stand a much better chance than the guy who's been doing like these katas or breaks for a couple of years, in that specific situation.
Right. They actually have competition with just guys that just trains to break. You see those competitions?
I have.
Yeah.
I remember one guy, like he ran his elbow through like a whole row of bricks. I feel like there were well over a dozen bricks,
right?
And he went through all of them.
I mean, I'm not gonna lie, man. It's talent, but it just looks funny too at the same time.
I mean, if you need someone to clear a path out of an alley, you probably call that guy,
right?
But I think that kind of goes to the idea, like, if your goal is just to get yourself out of a hairy situation while you're walking down the street, I think that has a ton of value. I mean, yeah, you got to have live drilling to where you get used to another human being in front of you, and that's also why a lot of these forms, a lot of these arts have 2-man sets.
Right.
And that's the thing. Like, I hear people in Kung Fu say is that we see the solo depictions, but we don't see the person on the other side.
Right.
And that's where I think um, a lot of these, I think that's a big reason actually why a lot of Kung Fu systems are seen as losing their fighting efficacy
Mm-hmm.
is because a lot of them might not teach those two-man sets. Right.
Right.
The idea being that, yeah, it's prearranged, but you learn how to block this shot, you learn how to block this kick, you learn how to counter, and I have to block and respond with something, and I have to come, and we just keep flowing back and forth,
Mm-hmm.
which is still a form of sparring, right? It's control, it's more control sparring, but then you're really working on a different type of power generation.
Mm-hmm.
I think, like, because, like in boxing, right? There's a term in boxing called shoe shining, right? You heard that,
Yeah.
right? So it's like you're just throwing a lot of small punches to
Uh-huh.
try to accumulate points. None of the punches are really having any effect, right? So
Right.
like, I don't think that will be some. So that will be maybe a good focus for boxing because you're trying to get points,
Right.
or MMA, right, or kickboxing. But when it comes to maybe you live in like a very rough part of Chinatown in the 1960s,
Yeah.
right? That, or if you live in a rough part of Fujian, right?
So
It's gonna be a very different focus.
yeah, I think it's gonna be a different type of training.
Yeah, yeah,
You
yeah.
know, you like I said, you have training for ring sports, training for, you know, everybody has, different type of training. So
Yeah. And even I'm sure, boxing is very, most of the best boxers are from the ghettos, right?
yeah.
Different ghettos around the world. Um, rough upbringing, poverty, violence, right? And usually, and I'm sure them, if they had to use their boxing on the street, quote unquote, versus in the ring, they're going to change their behavior too,
Right.
right? But they also have experience in that scenario,
Mm-hmm.
right? So they probably do a lot of stuff that isn't taught specifically.
Right.
But still boxing, but then it's like, oh, it's boxing for whatever situation they got into there.
Right. Well, I mean, didn't Pacquiao come from poverty? Then, right?
Pacquiao came from extreme poverty. I mean, probably a lot of the fighters from like Southeast Asia, South
Mm.
America,
Mm.
Mexico, USA,
Right.
Europe too. So I guess a lot of places around the world. Yeah,
Right. Right.
yeah. So this is a part of this, being that boxing is kind of a way to keep them focused, keep them grounded.
Right.
Um, but also a good way for them to help them protect themselves, right?
Right.
If they needed to.
Right.
But overall, I would say like looking at these breaking attempts, right? It's more of a different type of training modality for your body.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
I seen videos of,
yeah,
and I mean, some of it seems gimmicky, but I truly believe in like there's this old
yeah,
Chinese guy and his hands was like just swollen.
yeah,
He was just breaking bricks all day, man.
yeah, yeah. And I think like if someone really wanted to, if someone's goal was to say, I want to end the situation as quickly as possible,
Mm-hmm.
they're gonna their training is probably gonna look more like that.
Right.
Right. Maybe they won't even be punching bricks, but maybe they'll just, get in front of a makiwara
Right.
board and just hit it over and
Right.
over, or get in front of a bag and just hit it over and over again with the
Right.
same hits, right? Try to fold the bag, try to break the makiwara, try to
Yeah.
put a dent in an iron plate or whatever the case might
Yeah.
be.
I think that's one of the goals for a lot of these karate practitioners.
Yeah.
To end a fight with just one punch,
Yeah, yeah.
So you could see in their training that they're practicing for that one punch.
Yeah,
You know?
there's that Okinawan guy. I can't pronounce his name, but
Uh-huh.
he's in his 80s now and he's still got that ability, right?
Yeah.
Like even his grabs hurt.
Right.
He was demonstrating with one of the karate masters who hosts the show,
Yeah.
that interviewed him.
Yeah, dude, the guy was breaking 4x4 like wood
Mm-hmm.
with just his toes.
Ugh.
You know how crazy that is?
Yeah, but I think also with that too, we were talking about like traditional martial arts maybe
Uh-huh.
not being as popular as before.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a lot to go through to develop that, right?
Right.
And it's like it takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of energy, probably time that a lot of people rather spend doing other things.
Right.
And I'm sure a lot of times if there's not a lot of like money or fame on the other side of it,
Right.
then it's kind of like, oh, why would you do that? Unless you're in a situation where it's either that or don't survive.
Right. I think I said this a lot before in our other episodes. I said I feel like it's because people have no patience.
Mm.
They always want the easy way out.
I don't even know if it's that they have no patience. It's just more like when you have so many things competing for your attention,
Right.
right? There's so many other things. I mean, that does make us more impatient,
Well,
but it's
I
not so
mean,
much
a lot of them train in MMA,
yeah,
jujitsu, within like a couple months, they already know the basics and they can like
yeah,
spar. They some of them just can't. To them, in my opinion, when they hear traditional martial arts, they feel like it's gonna be like years before
hmm
they can even get on that level. That's a huge turnoff for a lot of people.
How long do you think it should take any art, right, traditional or modern, to turn someone into an effective fighter, or at least effective in what they promise?
Um, it depends on the person, but then if I'm gonna say I have to base it off like how long,
Mm-hmm.
I would say at least like a good 2 years just to be solid.
Yeah, 2 or 3 years. I
You
I
know,
agree. Yeah,
um,
of consistent
just
training.
yeah,
Yeah,
just
training
to be
hard.
solid. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. But then again, like I said, nobody's gonna wait that long for that.
yeah, yeah. Although, from my experience, that's how long it took for me to feel comfortable in the boxing ring.
It took you 2 years.
About 2 years.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. I'm
Hmm.
sure a lot of people got there faster.
But that's the thing, though. That's the thing, though. Like you're dedicated to it. You want it, right? So that's why it took you that long because you stayed, right?
Hmm
Some people are not gonna stay that long, man.
Yeah, and I guess also for me, I started relatively late.
Yeah.
Like I started when I was 19.
I mean, what motivated you? Did you have a goal, like you wanted to protect yourself, or there's something?
Now I want to be like Bruce Lee.
Uh,
um, and also I was watching a lot of Muhammad Ali videos at that
right,
time.
right.
Yeah, but around that time I was getting into Bruce Lee stuff, and I heard about how much he loved boxing. So I was like, all right, let me do this.
Right.
So
Yeah. Huh. Interesting. So, um, like I said before, man, I don't think we talked about it yet. Like, where do you see kung fu now? Like, do you see it's gonna keep growing, or you think it's like it's done?
we're kind of at a. I think with a lot of these classical martial arts, like because of the way history has moved in the 20th century, a lot of these traditional martial arts like kung fu, FMA, karate, otherwise, at least in the West, we're kind of at an inflection point because a lot of these guys who carry their tradition on from the Asian countries,
Mm-hmm.
they're in their 70s, they're in their 80s.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of them are passing, or at least they don't have too many years left of really seriously teaching this stuff, right?
Right.
So we're at a point where it could continue, or you could see, in my opinion, you could see a serious drop.
Right.
So
But I feel like out of all the traditional martial, I feel like kung fu is gonna drop the most for some reason. Cause I still
mm,
see karate still kind of valid these days.
hmm
FMA, um, not so much taekwondo, but you still see it around a lot, right?
yeah, it's still popular. I mean, every
Yeah,
every parent's gonna put their kid
right.
in taekwondo at some point.
But kung fu is like rare now, man. Like it's like if even if you hear one, you kind of like. To me, if I hear there's a kung fu school, it's like, oh, stat, where?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
It's not like okay, it's like here, there,
yeah. Or if it is kung fu, it's modern wushu.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So I think like in United States, it's like it's slowing down. It's like dying down.
Hmm.
But then in Asia, it's still strong. You know, like kung fu is just still strong over there.
Yeah, I mean it's been there longer.
Yeah,
You know, I think like here
I think
it's kind of like a passing phase almost, right? It's like from like the
I think it's a culture.
40s to the 90s.
You think it's a culture thing too? That's why.
Well, also just the fact that kung fu doesn't have a foundation here as much, right? Like
Right.
if you're talking about China, you're talking about thousands of years of or stories that supposedly reach back thousands of years, or at least hundreds of years,
Right.
right? There's no such history like that here. You know, it's like we have people bring it over to different Chinatowns in the 1930s and the
Right.
1940s. You know, they train a few generations. Probably there was a lot of, you said there's a lot of strong kung fu people in New York in like the 90s.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I'm sure a lot of those guys are older now, maybe retired, maybe like just looking to live a good life, right?
Right.
Some of them maybe aren't around anymore.
Right.
Um, how many in the generation after that picked it up? I don't know. It
Right.
doesn't seem like is a big of a volume, right?
The funny thing is, I uh, I kind of got curious because when I was like I think when I was like 12 or 11, I had this counselor in my school in San Diego. I remember his name. This black gentleman named
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Love,
Okay.
right? He's a kung fu practitioner at the
Mm-hmm.
time.
Mm-hmm.
I think he does like the uh some kind of like white crane style or something
Okay.
like that. Um, until this day, so I got curious. So I did some research trying to see where he's at now. Still teaching. So he's
Oh, that's
teaching.
cool.
He's still teaching. You know, he's really old now, but he still teaches. I think his like
He
son
probably
is taking over their school now. It's
that's
very
great.
so. If Mr. Love, you hear this, hit me up.
No, that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's and that's one of those things where yeah, that's a successful
Yeah.
transfer
Yeah.
across cultures. You know, with kung fu. You know, that's and I think that's something that could be great. You know, there's definitely a lot of people who are. I mean, one of my main kung fu teachers is a Westerner also, and he takes it very seriously.
Right.
You know,
Right.
so it's and a lot of his teachers are the same.
Right.
Westerns who take it very seriously. They really try to like delve into what their teachers taught them and what they could potentially build up, or even stuff that they don't immediately find useful. They still work to preserve it because
Right.
maybe we don't get it yet, but maybe it's good for teaching a certain type of person,
Right.
or maybe there's a reason it was changed to certain things. Um, but we got to understand why, right? So it's
Right. Yeah.
like in that sense is very much a combination of academia and also a warrior practice.
Right.
But it's hard to do. You know, it's like none of us probably are going to get rich off of it, right? Say for maybe like catch lightning in a bottle, maybe you get a contract teaching someone who plays a lot, or maybe you become a famous movie actor, right? But even
Yeah.
then, I don't know the movie part. I don't know how much that still happens. Yeah, and I guess maybe one of the reasons if kung fu's dying faster than those other arts is, I mean, people don't see. You were talking about your nephews, right, or
Yeah.
the younger generation.
Yeah.
They don't either don't know about it or they don't care about it or some combination of both, right?
But you see how you say it like that?
Hmm.
They don't know is because it's not promoted. No, how are they gonna see anything?
Yeah, yeah. I
Like
wonder.
they see it in like movies, but then
Sure,
to
yeah.
them they feel that that's fantasy.
Right, right.
You know.
Yeah.
So yeah, like the new generation, most of the time they don't know what the hell was that.
I guess we'll cut that part out.
Yeah, you try to choke them with the teeth.
T. No, it's okay. Yeah, I pulled that the
Nah, we're
tag
keeping
off.
that in.
Yeah.
Yeah, just keep it inside.
Learn kung fu. Help you defend against the green tea.
Was that like somebody leaving you a note? Like, don't talk.
That's right.
um, what I was saying, I was talking about like yeah, like the the newer generation. They just don't. Some of them don't even know what that is. They don't know what kung fu is.
I wonder if that's an organization issue too.
It is. I think it's that.
Yeah,
It's not being promoted enough.
yeah, because I know people trying to promote like Shrijao tournaments here. You
Yeah.
know,
But
like my
but
friend
here,
Matt Gelfin,
you see how you
others
said that?
too.
Try out, right?
Yeah,
If you ask a normal person what that is,
mm-hmm.
they don't know what that is.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
they'll be like, what is that?
yeah. Outside of I think outside of China, it's not. There's not even that many competitors outside of China. You know,
Mm-hmm.
in China, it's like a combination of like the Mongolians and the Han Chinese.
Right.
Um, but when it comes to outside that, it probably the competition level drops off very very quickly.
Right.
But
So
just because it's not there. It's not there for people to practice. You know, it's like judo is still very good worldwide. You know, but Shri Jiao
it's
is not.
being because it's. I think it's because it's a sport, right?
It's
Maybe
a
it's that's
sport.
why.
It's got the Olympics.
Yeah.
It's the second most practiced sport in the world after soccer.
Mm-hmm.
So like you got all these. It's still a quote unquote traditional martial art, but then you have like all these different nations around the world that kind of have their own way of playing it.
Right.
You know, even though it's all the same rules, but you'll see certain countries that favor more of a belt grip. You'll see certain countries that favor more of a sleeve lapel grip, right? So
Right.
you'll see certain countries like to play in close.
Right.
You'll see other countries that like to play more distance. Yeah. So, but it's just kind of like because of whatever reason, different peoples around the world play the sport differently,
Yeah.
and they all get to compete against each other.
Right.
You
Right.
know, so it's kind of like, oh, let's see which way stacks up the best. You know?
I think that should be one of our experiment to do is to go out and ask people questions on kung fu, like what do they think?
Mm-hmm.
What do you like? What do you guys know about kung fu? Right?
I
Like
wonder if it's
just
gonna be a situation where it's like, famous Asian Americans, Jackie Chan.
of course it's gonna be like
Yeah.
that. I mean that's a given, but because I've always been curious, so I asked many different generations, right?
Mhm.
You got the boomers. They basically said that Jackie Chan.
Sure.
They named many different traditional martial arts that they probably studied, right?
Right.
Because at their generation it was popular, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you have the millennials, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Off and on. Like some people still favor it, some people don't.
Yeah.
So it's like a mixed thing. But the new generation, Gen Z, right? Some of them, for example, like have this friend that I will not name. He's an actor, right? He's a Gen Z. He thinks Kung Fu is from Kung Fu Fighting, that song too. Kung Fu. He only knows Kung Fu Panda, the Kung Fu Fighting song, right?
By the way, if you guys ever hear dun, 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 it's
Yeah.
from that song. It's
Yeah.
not from
Yeah,
actual Chinese stuff. So
yeah.
cut it.
So and then Will Smith's son, what's his name?
Jaden Smith. Yeah.
Jaden Smith in the Kung Fu Kid.
Yeah, which was the
right?
Karate Kid.
Yeah.
Which is gonna be another Karate Kid
Yeah.
with
you see what I'm saying though?
yeah.
Which I would like to talk about that. The new Karate Kid trailer.
Yeah, sure.
It looks so dope,
Oh, it looks amazing.
right?
It looks amazing.
I don't
looks
know
like,
who the editor is, but he
Yeah.
convinced me on it. To me,
Yeah.
I feel like that protege of like Jackie Chan and
Yeah.
the combination with that Karate Kid,
Ralph Macchio.
Yeah, Ralph Macchio.
Daniel's son.
I feel like his style is gonna be a combination of kung fu and karate for some reason.
Well, they said two branches, one tree. You know,
Right.
I wonder if they're going to talk about the connection between Okinawan karate and
Right.
Fujian White Crane
Right.
Kung Fu.
Right.
You know.
Because I do feel like the newer generation are watching Cobra Kai, so
Mm-hmm.
I I hope this will be an impact for them to understand more.
Yeah,
like,
yeah. I mean, Cobra Kai is just such a popular show across the generations too. You know, and I don't think it's just because of '80s nostalgia. You know, like
Yeah. It's
is
not.
is is
It's,
way too popular amongst everybody for it to be just referring to this thing from the 80s, you know.
right.
Um, and I think it's because it tells a very relatable story. Well, maybe now not so much.
Yeah.
But the first season especially, right?
Right.
Like the first season is what, like this kid's getting beat up, home life maybe not the best.
Mhm.
He finds this sensei. In this case, Johnny and Mr. Miyagi. They were in a way they were both kind of broken old men at the
Mhm.
time,
Mhm.
and they're both handymen, right?
Right.
Miyagi was like a repair guy.
Not
Um,
Johnny. Johnny was not.
Johnny
Remember?
was a handyman. He got fired in the first
Yeah,
episode.
but he kept messing things up the whole time.
I didn't say he was a good handyman.
Right.
But he, he learns from this older guy. Older guy gets some positivity in his life because now he's making a difference in this kid's life
Right.
by teaching him how to defend himself and win a tournament. And you show the progression over time. Like I think everybody wishes that they were like tougher, more badass in some way, right? Johnny
Mhm.
uses that word like a million times in season 1, like
Mhm.
badass, 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 right?
Yeah.
Um, so I think that hits people on a very emotional level. I mean, now it's kind of like, have you watched the latest seasons?
Yeah.
Yeah, now it's like
I I'm
you
I'm
got
still
suspend
waiting for the. I mean, they kind of like they did like 3 episodes,
5 episodes of pop.
five
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
episodes, and now there's gonna be one that's coming soon.
Yeah, the final 5 are
Uh huh.
coming February 13th.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, it
I
was
hate it when they do it like this, man. I don't like it.
yeah, it's great to see some people that I know
Right.
get their breaks through it.
Yeah, I
Or
seen a few guys in there
yeah,
too.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So congratulations to all you guys.
Yeah.
But it's just like as far as like the story itself, it's just like you have to suspend more and more disbelief. It's like, all right, that's okay. I get that's not going to be reality, but I guess for the story, we'll take it, right? But
Right.
they're really starting to push that envelope.
Right.
And plus, it's not just about bully kids learning how to improve themselves anymore. It's become this whole other thing. And we're just kind of. I mean, I'm gonna watch it through, but that's just more
Right.
like I feel like I've just invested so much time and energy. I was like, all right, let me just watch this last 5 when they come
Yeah.
out, and
Yeah.
and that'll be that. Like, I don't think I will want it at season 7 at this point.
Yeah.
I do like the idea of that movie though. Like that movie,
Yeah.
I think that trope can always be taken in a different direction. But I'm curious to see how that
You
character
think this
develops.
movie is? Would it be like if you haven't watched Cobra Kai, you could still follow this movie? I think it's.
It seems like it.
I heard is you have to watch Cobra Kai.
Oh yeah.
You know,
Uh,
there's been a few people that said, "Oh, now I have to watch Cobra Kai in order to." I feel
I
like
don't
you
know.
might need to, you know,
Yeah. How much information's come out about this movie besides the trailer though?
not a lot.
Yeah. It seems like that kid um is playing almost like an independent character that's not connected to the Miyagi verse, right?
Yeah, I
At
don't
least
think
not
so.
at least
No.
not directly. Maybe in the movie they reveal that he's got something going on.
Yeah.
But it seems like he's kind of his own independent character that maybe
Right.
maybe he'll have that same hero's journey.
He play. I mean, what kind of Asian is he in this movie? Is he Chinese
That's a
or
good question actually. I mean,
could he be Japanese? Like,
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question.
what's that Japanese dude's name that Danielson fought? Could it be his son?
Oh yeah, chosen
Right.
Taguchi.
Right.
Yeah, I guess they don't really give us his name.
Yeah.
We don't know that much about that part yet.
Miyagi's grandson.
Maybe.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or great grandson.
Yeah.
So yeah, good for him though. Good for him. It's
Yeah,
great to see him.
yeah.
See him in a few things now, and he seems like he did the action scenes pretty well too. Like he seems like a pretty physically talented kid too.
I mean, from what I heard, from what other people were telling me, is that he already has a dancing background,
mm-hmm.
so he just picked it up easy, you know.
Mm.
And I think because of that, he just continued further into martial arts.
Yeah.
That's the same thing with that the dude from Cobra Kai, that played Lawrence.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah,
like
Billy Zabka.
from Karate Kid 1, he didn't know any karate, and then
Mm,
after he finished, he just continued like martial arts journey.
that's pretty cool. Jason Scott Lee too. After he
Yeah,
played Bruce
yeah,
Lee, just kept
yeah,
going with JKD.
yeah. That's crazy though.
Yeah, but it's it does show that there is a place, I think, like in modern Western society for traditional martial arts to really like grab a hold of people, right?
Hmm.
But I guess it's like you got to have something that the audience now, or not the audience, because if you're training, you're not just the audience, right? But
Well, I just find it kind of, I don't know. Is it because I'm Asian and I grew up loving this stuff, but
yeah,
I feel like there's like a thing about kung fu that people like it, but people still make fun of it. You know what I'm talking
mhm,
about?
mhm,
Like, and I see that all the time too. Like people like, oh, it's like, oh, you do kung fu, and they make fun of you about it, but at the same time, they still think it's cool. You know?
yeah. It's you might have noticed this too, but I've seen people who feel like the way they talk about kung fu, it seems almost like they want kung fu to be a joke, right?
Mm,
And I was listening to an Aikido guy who has a YouTube channel, and Aikido kind of has that same reputation as kung
yeah,
fu,
yeah, yeah.
right? It's like it's all woo woo. It's not really going to help you fight, right? And he made a good point. I think that people want, at least people involved in martial arts, right? They want something where they can look at and point to and laugh, right? Because where and I guess like kung fu and aikido are amongst those, right? Ninjutsu, right? They're the
Mm-hmm.
ones, regardless of whether or not there's good legitimate practitioners in all three of those areas, but for whatever reason, people seem to want to only take the joke part and use that to paint the whole broad brush, or paint the whole art with a broad brush. And I wonder if it's because, and he said on his channel, I wonder if it's also because they want to feel like that. Oh, I'm not sure if I'm getting the best out of my training, but oh, hi, at least I'm not doing that.
Mm,
If they're training,
yeah,
I mean, if they're not, if they're just like a lay person, then I don't know. I don't. Maybe they're just echoing what someone else told them.
right. I don't know, man. It's still kind of weird to feel like that though, cause
Yeah.
I had some homies, growing up. They'll make fun of me about doing kung fu,
Mhm.
but then yet they still watch Shaw Brothers and all these different kung
Yeah.
fu movies. And like, yo, this is the shit. But then when you do kung fu, they laugh at you.
Yeah.
I don't understand that.
Well, I remember when Jackie Chan was first making a splash in the U.S. Everybody loved him.
Yeah,
Like when he came out with Rush Hour, like all my friends were watching Rush
yeah.
Hour.
But they still make fun of that. You know that, right?
Yeah, but
Y-
they
y-
also do talk about how amazing it was.
Yeah, but get this, like the first thing they'll say to you, right?
Do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth?
Or
That one?
no, they say this. It's like, all right, Jackie Chan.
Yeah, yeah.
They say that all the time, and it's kind of like, I thought you guys liked Jackie Chan. Why you using it as like a diss? You see what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
I heard
Like,
that a lot growing up. I never
yeah,
quite understood
like
that.
they'll say, all right, Bruce Lee, all right, Jackie Chan. They use it against us, and it's kind of like, yeah, but you guys. I hear the reason why is because I have friends that say that to me all the time. Like when
Mm.
they're like mad at me, they're like, shut the fuck up, Jackie Chan. I was like, but we watched Jackie Chan movies together, bro.
Yeah, I guess like, thank you, right?
Yeah. So I don't understand how that's what I'm saying. It's like, do they really take it? Do they think kung fu is serious, or like they just use it as a joke all the time?
I mean, they're watching a movie, so
Yeah,
maybe ultimately they think it's just show.
I guess.
Who knows?
Yeah, I don't know.
Who knows? I mean, you see people all the time talk about how, well, Bruce Lee was just an actor; he couldn't really fight.
Right.
So I don't know if it's because they really believe it, or maybe on some level they kind of want to believe that Bruce Lee was just an actor who couldn't really fight.
Well, I mean,
But it depends on the
yeah,
person.
it
But
depends. I mean, I kind of feeling both sides of that.
mm,
There's some people that said, well, there's no proof that he's able to fight,
right,
right? Which I cannot deny that. And there's also people that says, well, he fought this many people, this and that. And like they made him so godly in a
yeah,
way to the point where it's like, what do you who are you supposed to believe, right?
yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, I look at it this way with in that case, in that specific case with Bruce Lee, Joe Louis, one of the best kickboxers in American history, right?
Joe, he's the karate guy, right?
Yeah, karate guy. He was a wrestler. He was a Marine. Loved lifting weights. Um, rest in peace to Joe Louis. But he talked about how Bruce Lee popped him a few times. He said, in the interview, he said, I'm paraphrasing a bit, but he said, "Yeah, I knew the real JKD because I got cracked with a few times. I got popped with a few times." And he said, I know how fast he was. I knew how hard he could hit. And Bruce Lee was like 50 pounds lighter than Joe.
Right.
So, and 50 pounds, and Joe Louis was a big muscular guy.
Right.
He's not a sloppy guy by any means,
Right.
And he said that he took a lot of his inspiration for improving his own game later from Bruce Lee. Same goes for Mike Stone. Also a serious fighter. Same goes for Jesse Glover. Jesse Glover, when he taught, his system was, I think it was called non-classical kung fu. He taught until he died. Jesse Glover was, I think it was like an army guy. He was also a judo champion.
Right.
And there's a lot of guys from that first generation like that. Wally J, like one of the legendary guys in the 20th century. So I go off of that. Yes, there's not direct evidence. It's not as clear as like video footage of Bruce Lee beating someone up, right? But I would say if he got that many OGs in martial arts to respect him to that extent, then he had something.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. But I mean that I believe. But you hear people like they're trying to like mystify Bruce Lee. Those are the ones that.
Oh, that's a whole different topic.
That's the crazy thing. Like
Yeah.
he defeated 50 people.
Yeah.
It's just like.
Bruce Lee could throw a needle and take a
Yeah.
mosquito out between his wings.
Yeah. That's
because
crazy,
he was like
man.
water.
Yeah, it's crazy. So hey, man. I think it's about. We're done. But I'm happy that we're back.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping that we can continue with this.
Yeah, definitely.
And,
a lot of things to talk about with this.
Yeah,
especially
of course.
where a lot of the value that Kung Fu does bring.
Right.
Yeah, we can get into that next time too.
So next time, guys, thank you for watching. We'll hit you guys up again.
Peace.